The chair now calls up Amendment 5162 from the senator from Polk, Senator McCoy. The senator from Polk, you're in order for opening comments on Amendment 5162 to House File 2458.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, this is an effort to address the critical shortage we have of direct care workers in Iowa. These are the people that serve in the roles of providing direct care and direct aid in our nursing homes, in our home health care facilities. They serve as hospice aides and other direct care service workers in programs created under this act. What this would do, it would recognize that they are also in a high-demand occupation with high turnover jobs. I think the important thing here is there's a huge demand for direct care workers, and there's an influx of Iowans that need services. We are now the third grayest state in the nation, and for those over the age of 85, that is the fastest growing segment of our population. Many begin their professional careers as direct aid workers, and then later, through additional training and education, advance into nursing, social work, and other health career options as they leave the direct care workforce and move into more skilled areas. Direct care workers tend to be the first rung on the health care career path. So we want to promote them and help them by recognizing that they are in a high-demand health profession, and they are, in fact, our pathway to nurses and other skilled health care workers. Direct care workers earn, on average, between $9 and $13 an hour. So a good place to start is to help elevate them and elevate their skill levels so that they can ultimately reduce the turnover in these high-demand occupations, doing the difficult work that they do day in and day out. That is the purpose of my amendment today, is to recognize what we already know about Iowa and what our needs are for our elderly population, our most vulnerable citizens, those over the age of 85 that are entering into our skilled nursing facilities and need home health care. So I would just simply move the amendment if there are no questions.
Is there discussion on the amendment? The chair recognizes the senator from Story, Senator Cornbach.
I'd just like to thank Senator McCoy for bringing this amendment forward. There is a whole generation of which I'm a member. It's called the baby boomers. And their leading edge is getting to retirement age. And over the next 15 or 20 years, there's going to be a huge increase in the number of people who are in the senior citizen category who have increasing health needs. And the demand for healthcare workers is going to skyrocket. So any bill that we talk about future-ready Iowa, we got to be ready for that part of our future. These people provide vital services to people whose health is perhaps more frail than the average adult, and it takes a special type of person with particular skills to be able to meet that need. So I really hope that we would be able to include these workers in the umbrella of this bill. Thank you.
The chair recognizes the senator from Buchanan, Senator C. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator McCoy, your amendment is well taken. I do consider what started out to be a discussion on the whole idea of Des Moines taking over so much of the action on the community colleges, and we all said, hey, wait a minute, this should go back to the community colleges. These decisions should go back and be in the hands of the community colleges. I believe that's still true with this amendment. And these decisions, again, back to the community colleges. Let's let them make the decisions. With that, I was looking over some of the data of the jobs that we're talking about, and one of them for sure is one my daughter I mentioned was looking at, a physical therapist, and at $37 an hour wage, that's not bad. With that, I urge the body to resist this amendment. Thank you.
The senator recognizes, or the chair, excuse me, recognizes the senator from, or the senator from Wapello, Senator Chelgren.
Thank you, Mr. President. Also, I appreciate the comments that were made, and Senator McCoy, I actually really appreciate the amendment that you brought forward, but let me explain to you one of the concerns I have with it. When we talk about Future Ready Iowa, we talk about a scholarship program, and there are absolutely high demand jobs out there that are high paying, and there are high demand jobs out there that are low paying. I brought up a story a couple weeks ago about a young lady who had an unfortunate issue. She made too much money with regards to being eligible for health care. So she made too much for that. And she works as a CNA. You know, this is somebody who is assisting the very people you're talking about. The dilemma ends up being is, and I can only speak about, my district, and I know my district's relatively poor compared to a lot of the other districts around here, but you're dealing with salaries that are around $9 or $10 an hour. Literally, some of these entry-level positions that you're talking about, I have no problem with saying they're important positions. But for me, I want to stress that when you go to get your education, when you spend your time looking at your future, the future-ready part of this, that return on investment is so important. And where these are high-demand jobs, and I understand Senator Cornbach saying that, hey, this baby boomer generation is going to need a lot of these individuals. Unfortunately, they're not high return on investment jobs. I would really encourage this chamber, as we go forward, to remember we want to encourage young people to go into high return on investment for their time, for their energy, for their education. Because as opposed to trying to encourage them to go into a $10 an hour job, I want to encourage them to go into an $18 an hour job or a $25 an hour job. A lot of that really comes down to making sure that it's not just that they're in need, but that they're in need with a good return so they can take care of their own families. I don't want a permanent underclass that's been encouraged to say, you know what, because of your empathy and your care for others, you should take a substandard wage. My colleagues on the other side have argued for a long time that we should have a minimum wage of at least $10 an hour. That's the career path that we're putting people on when we say, hey, let's go do those things. I would rather have someone spend an extra couple of years in school to become a nurse as opposed to these other job professions. These job professions will be there. There will always be a need to take care of somebody else. And unfortunately, the way we're currently dealing with this, it's a relatively low-paying side of it. But when we pass this legislation, for me, it's always been about return on investment and encouraging people to get the most on that return for themselves and for their families. So with that, I would also oppose this amendment. Thank you.
The chair recognizes the senator from Story, Senator Cornbach.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. I apologize for rising a second time, but Senator Chelgren's description is most intriguing. A high-demand job that doesn't pay very well. This is an economic contradiction in terms. When the demand for any job, when demand for any product or service is high relative to the supply, the price, in this case the wage, should rise. So why do we have this conundrum, a high-demand job that doesn't pay very well? I would assert that this conundrum is explained by the fact that people in these professions have historically, traditionally been dominated by women and by people from racial minorities. They have not had the bargaining power, they have not had the social status, they have not had the economic power to demand higher wages. And I think that including these professions in this bill is critical to accomplishing that. Let's include these professions in this bill. Let us recognize their importance. Let us generate greater understanding in our society about the value of the services performed. And I think by doing so, we can help get the compensation up to the value that is truly delivered. So I really hope that we can include this amendment in this important bill.
The chair recognizes the senator from Blackhawk, Senator Dotzler.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also rise in support of this amendment to this legislation from Senator McCoy. And I think you guys have, my fellow colleagues here, have a complete lack of understanding of what's really going on in the work out there in the workforce. First of all, the type of jobs that Senator McCoy is talking about do require some additional education. And that's a demographic that doesn't have a lot of education that we're trying to move into the world of work. We have such a shortage of skilled workers in the state of Iowa, it's becoming a crisis, and every business knows that. So when I worked as an employment training specialist, I always looked to entry-level positions that required some additional skill sets to get these individuals to understand that they do have the ability to learn and they can advance themselves. One of the things that you see when the workforce partners come, and it's almost universal, they have somebody in one of the early stage direct care worker positions that realized that they found a career that they could succeed at, and they were stimulated, Senator Shelgren, to go on and get that degree in nursing. This is what Senator McCoy's talking about. We have such a tremendous shortage. There's no reason why we wouldn't include a demographic that is low income when you look across the board, that might not have skill sets or a vision that they think that they could handle a type of a nursing career. This is a great amendment. This is what the Future Ready Task Force talked about. The lowest income people, people without skills, to get them excited about learning and get them into a career that they have possibilities of advancements and understanding. This is a great amendment. You should rethink your thinking on this. This is what this is about. We've got to move them forward. Give them that energy to get excited about it. So please support the amendment.
Seeing no further discussion on the amendment, the chair recognizes the senator from Polk for final remarks on Amendment 5162.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, I listened with interest as folks discussed this amendment, and I know that y'all probably have your votes lined up on this, but I do want to make a couple points that I think are important to make. Again, this is the first rung on the ladder for people that are showing an interest and a passion for caring for people. I've got a couple examples of caretakers in my family. My grandmother was a nurse's aide and cared for elderly into her early 90s. She worked into her early 90s, caring for the old people, she said. She lived to be 100 and lived at home the entire time throughout her life. She never had to go into a nursing facility, and she just was an amazing caretaker. And I can tell you that her values were in caring for others and keeping old people in their homes, as she would say. My aunt, my dad's sister, her daughter, followed in her mother's footsteps, and she worked for over 20 years in the Perry Nursing Home as a nursing assistant from the 4 o'clock to midnight shift, and every night would get her patients fed and medicated and ready for bed, caring for them, giving them sponge baths, taking care of their needs. And while she could have gone on and done any variety of roles, her heart and her passion were providing that care for those people that lived in that nursing home. And now my niece is following in her footsteps and doing that same caring mission. You know, those are Iowa values. And, Senator Shelgren's comments were really, I think, essentially dismissing these people that feel that passion to care for others. And while not everything has a return on investment that equates to dollars, Senator they are heroes. They are heroic in their mission to care for others. And it seems to me that being the third grayest state in the nation, we better get a plan together for how we're going to attract people to care for our elderly in our nursing homes, because someday they'll be us in those nursing homes. And we're going to want people that are heart and mission driven to want to care for us, whether it has an ROI or not, because not everything in life has an ROI. Otherwise, there wouldn't be a lot of people wouldn't be raising their hand to be legislators or to be school board members or to do the things that people do because they're called to serve. And so I think that you should pass this amendment. I don't think you will, but I think you should. And I think we ought to be thinking about how we prepare for the future when we talk about Iowa values, how we care for our elders, how we care for the people that are truly least among us and need those services. Now, I've got some information that's going to surprise some of you. Some of you that are attuned to rural areas won't be so surprised. There are about 13 nursing homes today that are on the bubble, and it doesn't look like they're going to make it in Iowa. And some of them are in your communities, and they're going to close. And those people that are in those nursing homes are going to have to be moved to larger cities or to other places where there are openings. And we are about ready to see the beginning of the crisis, the closure of rural nursing facilities throughout Iowa. I have a partner whose mother's in one of those rural nursing facilities, not far from the farm that she was born and raised on, and that nursing home's in real trouble, and they just simply can't make it anymore. What's happened is because of the shortages of nursing aides in the nursing homes, they're using outplacement service companies, vendors, temps that come in and actually fill these roles, and it doubles their labor costs. And what eventually happens is everybody that goes to work for the temp agency gets a higher wage than what the current facility is paying. And so if the current facility raises their wages, the temp agency raises their wages. And so everybody is ending up working for these temp agencies. In one part of northwest Iowa, there's over 400 people working for just one temp agency. And it's breaking the financial backs of the nursing homes that are trying to exist in these small rural areas. So we've got a big problem, and nobody's talking about it. Nobody's working on solutions for how to deal with this crisis that's about to hit. And we're headed right for the iceberg, and we don't have a plan. And if we can't figure this out, I would venture to say that our seniors are probably about ready to enter one of the most critical stages of danger that we have in this state. And that's where they're going to be susceptible to live in places where their family aren't close, where their friends aren't close, and exist in facilities that are primarily understaffed, under-regulated, and underperforming in all the key measurements that keep elderly healthy, that keep them alive with some quality of life. And home health care is facing the same crisis. So, we all talk about how we want to keep seniors in their homes as long as we can. Well, one of the ways we keep seniors in their homes is by making sure that they have good services that going into the home to assure that their nutrition and their medication and their daily needs are being met. And quite frankly, this is what I'm talking about today. This is the future that I'm trying to get ready for under Future Ready Iowa, the future that I'm trying to face, and that's the cold, hard truth, the fact that we are the third grayest state in the nation. And I see nothing in this plan, I see nothing in this re-elect Kim Reynolds plan that speaks to those issues. Nothing. And I'm very disappointed that this body will not be adopting this amendment. I move for Amendment 5162 and ask for a record roll call.
The senator from Polk moves the adoption of Amendment 5162 to House File 2458. Record roll call has been requested. Those in favor of the question shall vote aye. Those opposed shall vote no. The Secretary shall open the voting machine to receive your votes. Senator Zahn votes no. Senator Edler votes no. Senator Feenstra votes no. Senator Lofgren votes no. Those voting yes, 22. Those voting no, 25. The amendment is defeated. Is there further